You didn't choose to be born second. You just showed up into a world that was already painted in your brother's colors. From the moment you opened your eyes, he had the spotlight. The name everyone knew, the face people recognized. You learned early that your name would always come second, whispered in the echoes of his achievements. You tried to stand out, to make a noise of your own, but no matter how loud you screamed, it never felt like your voice. Instead, you were the younger one, the shadow trailing the footsteps of a giant. Your earliest memories aren't your own victories, but the world's stories about him. The videos that played on repeat in the living room, the photos scattered across social media, the cheers from crowds you never saw. You watched from the sidelines, your hands itching to join the game. But every time you stepped up, people only asked, how does it compare to your brother? They didn't ask who you were, they asked who you weren't. It wasn't personal, it was just the way the world saw you. You grew up learning that your success was measured by his standards, that your wins were footnotes, and your failures were magnified because you were expected to be better. You tried. God, you tried. You poured your heart into your craft, whether it was content creation, competition, or whatever stage you stood on. You worked harder than you ever thought possible, sometimes feeling like you were running just to keep pace with a shadow that stretched longer than you could reach. The pressure wasn't just external. It burrowed inside, whispering doubts when you were alone. Was any of this really yours? Or were you just playing a part in someone else's story? You wrestled with envy and pride, love and resentment, sometimes in the same breath. People told you to be patient, to find your own lane. But that lane was narrow, crowded, and always a little behind. Every success was met with hesitation. A viral video was met with, not bad for a younger brother. A fight won was called a fluke. Every step forward was undercut by the question, can you do it without him? You realized you were trapped in a game you never signed up for. A game where your identity was tied to someone else's legacy and the world was waiting for you to fail. Sometimes, the weight was unbearable. You'd lie awake at night replaying moments you wished you could erase. The fights lost because you weren't ready. The comments that stung deeper than any punch. The smiles that hid the loneliness. You wanted to scream, to break free, to be seen for who you really were. But the silence grew louder. You learned to hide your pain, to smile through the doubt, to keep fighting even when the odds were stacked against you. You loved your brother. You admired him. But that love came with a price you paid every time you stepped into the ring, the studio, the arena, and faced the world's judgment. You fought not just opponents, but expectations. You fought to prove that you were more than just a shadow, that your story was worth telling, that you were worthy. And yet, here you are, born in the shadow, fighting to step into your own light. You put in the work, every hour, every day. You made content, fought battles, and streamed yourself into exhaustion. But the world wasn't playing fair. No matter how loud you tried to be, the comparisons never stopped. When you landed a knockout, the chat flooded with comments about who you weren't. When you posted a viral video, fans called it a copycat act. Every victory felt like a question. Was it really yours, or just a shadow of his? It became exhausting to prove your worth constantly, fighting not just your opponents, but the judgment of millions who only saw you through the lens of his name. The hate came from everywhere. Strangers, trolls, and sometimes even people close enough to sting the most. You asked yourself if anyone could see the real you, beyond the shadow, beyond the comparisons. The spotlight felt suffocating and elusive at once. You celebrated your wins quietly, afraid that the loudest voice would drown you out. And when your brother's successes blew up, the world cheered for him, while you were left in the echoes. The more you tried to separate your identity, the tighter the shadow wrapped around you. Even inside your family, you felt it. Praise given to him in your presence. Questions about his career before anyone asked how you were doing. You learned to swallow your pride and love silently, to cheer for someone who seemed untouchable while your own place felt uncertain. You started to wonder if you'd ever be anything more than a footnote in his story. And yet, you kept pushing, kept fighting, for a chance to be seen and valued for yourself, not just as an extension of someone else. You had your moments, those rare flashes where the spotlight found you alone. The viral video that blew up overnight, the fight where the crowd finally chanted your name. Those nights when the cheers felt like they belonged to you, if only for a moment. You tasted freedom, a glimpse of the life you'd fought for. But even in those moments, the shadow loomed, quiet but unrelenting. The headlines framed your success as the younger one's victory. The achievements were always compared, qualified, diminished. You wanted to scream that you were more than just a footnote, but your voice felt small against the roar of his legacy. The world never quite let you forget. The echoes followed you from fight to fight, video to video, like a constant reminder that your light was borrowed, your path pre-written. You learned to accept the applause that was softer, the praise that was quieter. You treasured those fleeting moments, but braced for the inevitable comparisons that would follow. When your brother soared, the cheers drowned out your own, leaving you alone again in the wings, clapping for someone else's glory. And that loneliness, it cut deeper than any criticism. Still, you held on. You cherished every good job from friends, every nod of approval, every comment that saw you. Because those moments, however small, they reminded you that beneath the shadow, there was still you. And even if the world refused to fully see it, you couldn't stop believing. You carry a name heavy with expectations not your own. A legacy forged long before you ever stepped into the spotlight. Every appearance, every fight, every word you say is weighed against it. You aren't just fighting for yourself, you're fighting to live up to the history that your family built. The pressure is relentless. Every mistake feels like a betrayal of something bigger than you. You want to break free, to be seen for who you are. But the world won't let you. They want the story they know. They want the name that sells. And when you falter, it's more than a personal failure. It's letting down a tradition. The burden settles on your shoulders and blurs the lines of your own identity. You watch how people talk about your brother. They celebrate his wins as if they were the family's, his failures as if they were a shared burden. And you stand there, supposed to be proud, supposed to be supportive, but all you feel is the cold ache of invisibility. The crowd isn't watching you. It's watching his shadow, stretching over everything you try to do. The media loves the headline, "Brother of a champion steps up," but forgets to ask what you want. Your personal story is lost beneath the weight of the name you share. You've become the character in someone else's story. Your own chapters edited out or footnoted. You try to claim moments of individuality. You want to tell people that you have your own dreams, your own struggles, your own victories. But the louder you speak, the more you risk being labeled attention seeker or trying too hard. You learn to walk a fine line, assert yourself enough to be noticed, but never so much that you disrupt the narrative everyone expects. You replay every public moment where you wished you could have been free, when a crowd cheered and you weren't sure if it was for you or the brother they think you're supposed to be. You remember sitting alone backstage, your hands shaking not from nerves but from frustration, wondering if you'd ever be measured for who you really are, or only against who you aren't. Family gatherings are bittersweet. The people you love most unintentionally reinforce the narrative. Praises meant to support your brother feel like they cast long shadows over your own accomplishments. You feel guilty for wanting more, for wanting your own place in the sun. You tell yourself that love means sacrifice, but some sacrifices feel too deep to bear. And yet you keep pushing, because to stop would be to give up more than just your own voice. It would be to let down everyone who believes in you. The eyes of your parents, your closest friends, and maybe even your own heart are watching. You're caught in a battle that's as much about legacy as it is about you. And that battle wears on you every single day. You wonder if you'll ever fully escape the shadow, or if you're destined to live within it forever. Sometimes it feels like the name you carry is a chain, holding you to expectations that no one can fulfill but your brother. Other times it feels like a shield, something to protect you from the world even as it weighs you down. You learn to live with this tension, to balance between honoring your family's past and carving out your own future. To fight in a ring where sometimes the opponent isn't your challenger, but the history you were born into. And no matter how many times you stumble, you get back up, because this is your fight now. Despite everything, you keep pushing. Every knockdown, every whisper, every doubt fuels a fire inside you that refuses to die. You fight, not just for applause or validation, but for a voice that's truly yours. You create your own path even if it's littered with obstacles and bruises, both visible and invisible. You stand up to comparisons and critics, to the endless echoes of a name that isn't your own. You tell yourself that your worth isn't defined by the shadow you were born into. It's defined by the battles you choose to fight, by the moments when you claim your space. Sometimes the road feels unbearably lonely. The spotlight isn't as bright as you dreamed it would be. The applause is faint, the cheers often drowned out by the larger voice of your brother's legacy. You don't mind the silence as much as the invisibility, the way you can give everything and still feel unseen. But somewhere deep inside, you hold on to hope, the hope that one day you'll be recognized for who you are, not just who you're related to. You find small victories in unexpected places. A heartfelt compliment from a fan who sees your struggle. A genuine moment of pride from someone who finally looks past the shadow. You cherish these glimpses of acknowledgement, no matter how rare or brief. They remind you why you never stop fighting, why you refuse to let the weight of expectations crush your spirit. You discover your own voice, Not in roaring stadiums or viral videos, but in quiet moments of self-acceptance and resolve. You realize that the hardest battle is not winning applause, but owning your story without apology or excuse. You learn to wear your scars and setbacks as proof of your resilience, not as symbols of defeat. You remember that your identity was never meant to be defined by someone else's spotlights. It was always yours to claim, on your own terms. The shadow may have shaped your early steps, but it no longer controls your path. You step forward not to outshine, but to shine for yourself. And in that act of fighting for yourself, you find freedom. You find strength. You find peace. Because no matter the shadow, you deserve your own light. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be celebrated. Not as the younger one, not as the other guy, but as you. And that is why it sucks to be the younger sibling.